students, in last class we discussed the structure of embryo sac. So the embryo sac is a female gametophyte which produce a female gamete. As the structurally we discussed, it is having two ends, cholazal end and micropylar end. Those embryo sac, it consists of 7 cells, that is 3 antipodals, 3 egg operators, in which 2 synergids and 1 egg cell and 1 central cell. So this embryo sac is 8 nucleated, 3 nuclei in antipodals, 3 nuclei in egg operators, 2 nuclei in the single cell, that is central cell, that is diploid. So after we discussed how those embryo sac it is developed within the ovule. In the ovule, one of the cell of nuclear cell, the cell which is located towards the micropylar end, the cell which is larger, that cell which developed a complete embryo sac by cell divisions. By both, in that cell the meiotic division is occurred and mitotic division is occurred. Both divisions which are occurred, it leads to formation of a complete and mature embryo sac. As we discussed, it is complete in previous class. Today we discussed that is pollination. So pollination, it is nothing but transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. Transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of same flower or another flower present in same plant, or another flower present in different plant, another flower present in different plant. So this process what we are called as pollination. So students, a pollination is one of the important process in plants, because without pollination there is no fertilization. If there is no fertilization, there is no production, there is no development of ovary into fruit or ovule into seed. So because in all angiospermic plants, what the food produced by either fruit or seeds. So as the pollination is one of the important process in all food producing plants. So as it is one of an important process. So here, for this pollination, there is important requiring process, that is maturation of anther. So after maturation of anther, dehiscence of anther. So that is the anther wall. So for example, it is the anther, So these anther which completely mature, after maturation, the dehiscence process, that is the breakdown of these anther will occur. That is the prerequisite process of pollination. The maturation of anther and dehiscence of anther is required. So as at the time of dehiscence, as we know that is four pollen sacs which are present in the each anther. At the time of dehiscence, already we discussed that is at the time of dehiscence, the two pollen sacs which are present in the each anther lobe. Anther is a bilobed structure. Two lobes are there. Each lobe consists of two pollen sacs, as previously we discussed. At the time of dehiscence, that is the two pollen sacs which are present in each lobe, which are fused. After fused, slowly the bursting process is occurred. So at the time of bursting nature, certain mechanical pressures are applied on the walls of endothelium, that is just below the presence of epidermis. We discussed four wall layers: epidermis, endothelium, middle layers, tapetum. So already we discussed in the endothelium layer there is presence of fibrillar thickenings. That fibrillar thickenings which are having most important role. So because that fibrillar thickenings are condensed, shortened, during which there is applying of a mechanical force. That mechanical force which helps to break down of these anther. So especially where the location it is called as that is a notch-like structure is there in the notch where the two lobes are present. Two, that is anther sacs. There is a notch. In the notch area, there is dehiscence or breakdown of anther is occurred. That dehiscence process is the prerequisite process for this pollination. So as after breakdown, there is the pollen grains which are present in the anther sac or pollen sac, they are released. When they are released, when these anther is completely matured, the anther is completely matured. If it is completely matured, the pollen grains are released. So these pollen grains which are released from these anther. For example, so there is a flower, it consists of a different parts. So at the time of maturation of these anther, they release pollen grains. So these pollen grains which are transferred from it is the anther, it is the stigma. So the phenomenon what we have called as that is pollination, that is transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of either same flower, that process or phenomenon called as pollination. Here, the pollination is of majorly two types. That is, what we are saying, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination and cross-pollination. But we categorized the pollination is of three types. That is, types of pollination depend upon the source of pollen grain. Based on source of pollen, based on source of pollen grain, that is the pollination is of three types. They are, that is, first one is autogamy. The second one is deuterogamy. Third one is xenogamy. These three are very important types. So that is first one, it is the self-pollination. The second one is deuterogamy. Third one is xenogamy. Both are we considered as cross-pollination. So as we classified basically the two types, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. But based on the source of pollen grain, the pollination is of three types, that is autogamy, deuterogamy, xenogamy. What are these? So what is autogamy? So here, autogamy, auto is nothing but self. Auto is nothing but self. Gamy, it is nothing but fusion. Here, autogamy, it is nothing but transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of same flower. So such phenomenon what we are called as, that is the autogamy. So here the pollination occurred in the same flower, in the single flower. So that is what we are called as autogamy. So in the autogamy, always the maturation of anther and stigma at the same time. The sex organs are well exposed. That helps to autogamy, that helps to self-pollination. So otherwise maybe those maturation time is varied, it is not successful autogamy or self-pollination. Otherwise the various natures, length of style and even the stamen is varied, it is not easily. So we discussed those which consider that is outbreeding devices. As well, that is the autogamy in which all the flowers, in which sex organs are exposed. That is most of those in which what the flowers are exposed, in which self-pollination is occurred. So but in some plants in certain plants like Viola, Oxalis and Commelina, so these plants, they produce two types of flowers. So these two types of flowers means they are chasmogamous flowers and clistogamous flowers. Chasmogamous flowers and clistogamous flowers. What are chasmogamous flowers? So you see just a common example in groundnut, even that is Commelina, even that is Viola and Oxalis. So your familiar example, that is groundnut plant. in which it is also produced the two types of flowers, that is both chasmogamous flowers and clistogamous flowers. So chasmogamous flowers means which are aerial condition, aerial flowers which are present in the air, which are present above the ground level. So as these chasmogamous flowers which are aerial and well exposed sex organs, well exposed sex organs. So well exposed sex organs means the sex organs are nothing but that is stamen and stigma. So these stamen and stigma which are exposed condition. So in Commelina, the chasmogamous flowers which are little bit violet color, or otherwise in groundnut plant which are little bit yellowish colors. As here, the chasmogamous flowers either in certain plants those are sterile. For example, in the groundnut plant, so the plant which consists of chasmogamous flowers which are well exposed but which are unisexual condition, which contain only that is male flowers. So as the clistogamous flowers are that is underground. The clistogamous flowers are underground nature, which are present inside the soil. But here, sex organs are not exposed. Sex organs are not exposed. It is nothing but always closed flowers. Clistogamous flowers are closed flowers, but in which always stamen and stigma, that is anther and stigma, very close. They are near. So while they are present very close, which provide that is self-pollination. While they are present, that is the anther stigma, or that is anther and stigma which is close, near contact, easily released. Sometimes in those clistogamous flowers, the pollen grains which are germinated within the anther sac. So ಈ ಆಂತರ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ವಾ, ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತರಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲೇನೆ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಪೋಲನ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ನ ಎಮರ್ಜ್ ಮಾಡಿರಬಹುದು. So at the time of maturation of these, at the time of condition of releasing of those pollen grains, that is the pollen tube is emerged from these. That pollen tube entered into the ovule. That is the ovary. That is the ovary of that is through the stigma it will be entered sometimes. So as like that is in the autogamy it is nothing but transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of same flower. It's very important. Same flower. So that is just I given both these three types of definition in the same. So we need not write all these. So this much is enough for pollination. That is transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of a flower. So if transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of same flower, it is called as autogamy. So as autogamy, in which certain plants they produce two types of flowers. Don't confuse. Chasmogamous flowers are nothing but well exposed sex organs but those flowers are aerial condition, where in which maybe those are also bisexual, not only all in unisexual. Not unisexual, not bisexual in all plants. Certain plants, the chasmogamous flowers are even bisexual also. So in which, in bisexual, that is transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma here, what? That pollination carried by these, which is called as chasmogamy. Chasmogamy. Chasmogamy means the pollination occurred in chasmogamous flowers, like clistogamous flowers, in which transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of that unopened flower. The flowers which are also called as unopened flower. Unopened flowers. So these flowers are not opened, which are closed condition, always closed. That is, adikadana unopened flower and kaltivi. In unopened flowers, what the pollination is carried, what the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to stigma, so such phenomenon what we are called as clistogamy. Clistogamy. That is, transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of a clistogamous flowers, such phenomenon what we are called as clistogamy. So these are the two types of flowers which produced by the where the carrying of autogamy of certain plants, not all. So the plants like Viola, Oxalis, Commelina, a groundnut. So in which the production of two types of flowers, that is chasmogamous flowers and clistogamous flowers, very important. So chasmogamous flowers are aerial and well exposed sex organs. Sex organs are easily seen through our naked eye. But clistogamous flowers, which are underground, which are present inside the soil, but here sex organs are not exposed because the flowers are always closed condition. Unopened flowers are closed flowers in which the sex organs are not exposed. So, as the two types of flowers which are produced in certain plants where there is autogamy is occurred. So next, that is geitonogamy. So geitonogamy it is nothing but transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of another flower or different flower. Another flower or different flower present in same plant. So don't confuse here what we write same flower, but here we write same plant. But the pollination is carried between two flowers. So here pollination carried between two flowers. It is not a same flower, as those two flowers which are present in same plant. That is what we are called as geitonogamy. It is also a type of a cross-pollination. It is also a type of cross-pollination because the pollination carried by two different plants of the same plant. So here, one thing is keep it in your mind. So that is, if maybe of morphologically they are different, but genetically same. Genetically same. If sometime the two different plants present in the same, in which also the pollination is carried. ಎರಡು ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಒಂದೇ ಕಡೆ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ನ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಳಬಹುದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಟೂ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಪೀಸೀಸ್ ಬೇರೆ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಆ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಜರ್ಮಿನೇಟ್ ಆಗೋದು ಬಿಡಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಜರ್ಮಿನೇಟ್. ಇಫ್ ಮೇಬಿ ಆಫ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಸ್ಪೀಸೀಸ್ ಒಂದೇ ಸ್ಪೀಸೀಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ maybe sometimes the morphological structures are variant, but genetically which is same, then it allow to the stigma is germinate that pollen grain. But in that heterogamy, genetically same. So because of the two flowers of a same plant, which carry. But two different plant ಅಂದಾಗ ಎರಡು ಬೇರೆ ಸ್ಪೀಸೀಸ್ ಒಂದೇ ಇದ್ರು ಬೇರೆ ಅಂದಾಗ ಕೂಡ ಅದು ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ xenogamy ಮುಂದೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. So as the transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of another flower or different flower, that flower present in the same plant, such phenomenon what we are called as geitonogamy. So it is another type of pollination, that is geitonogamy. So another one is xenogamy. Xenogamy, it is nothing but transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of another or different flower, or different flower present in different plant. So it's very important. So if the same species, if otherwise different species, as we considered last, if different species, the pollination is occurred, but the fertilization, that is pollen germination, is not occurred. If the same species, that is germination of pollen grain, depend upon pollen chemical analysis and the chemical constituents which are present on the stigma, which helps to, that is germination of pollen grain. So if chemical analysis of both them, it will be same, it allow to germination on the stigma. If otherwise if change, then it is not allowed to, that is germination of different pollen on the stigma of another species. As like the xenogamy, it is nothing but transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of different flower present in different plant, or another flower present in another plant, various plant. For example, the plants which produced unisexual flowers. For example, papaya. Papaya which produce the flowers of either male or female. So means papaya exhibit xenogamy. Why? There is a question. Papaya exhibit xenogamy because which produce unisexual flowers. So that is nothing but the flower contain either androecium or gynoecium, either stigma or stamen. The flowers with the stamen, that is called staminate flower. The flowers with the pistil, which is called as pistillate flower. So as like that papaya which produce unisexual flowers, hence it exhibit, that is xenogamy, in which papaya plant the same type of either males or female flowers are only present, as like they, in which the pollination carried by the different. So these are the three types of pollination. Which are the three types of pollination? That is autogamy, xenogamy, geitonogamy. So basically, self-pollination, cross-pollination are there. Self-pollination, it is nothing but pollination present or occurred in the same flower. That is cross-pollination, it is nothing but the pollen of one flower transferred to another flower. So here, in cross-pollination, pollination carried between two flowers. In self-pollination, the pollination carried in same flower or in single flower. So that is what we are called as self-pollination or cross-pollination. That geitonogamy and xenogamy, which both comprised in cross-pollination. As previously we discussed, the pollination is an important process because as it helps to produce food, as the fertilized ovules converted, that is developed as seed, the fertilized ovary developed as fruit, the fruit and seed which are used as a food source. So in pollination carried by certain agents, that is the agents of pollination. Agents of pollination. So here the different agents which are involved in pollination, because the pollen grains which are carried by different medium, based on that medium, there is based on agents, there is different types. So which are the agents? So here, like honeybees, moths, wasps, beetle, animals, birds, that is insects, even certain arboreal rodents, that is like squirrel or mice, rat, like different. So as the different types of agents are there. So in certain plants, not only involved in these all biotic. So there is the three important agents are there, in which agents, the agents are the two abiotic agents. Two abiotic agents. So that is of wind and water. Wind and water are two abiotic agents. So one biotic agents, that is all the animals. Based on agents, based on agents, there is different types of pollination. Different types of pollination. So that is based on agents. That is nothing but anemophily. Anemophily. It is not animals. Anemophily, it is nothing but pollination carried by wind. Pollination carried by, or the pollen grains carried by, or the pollination by wind. Pollination by wind is called as pollination by wind. It is called as anemophily. So, wind is a abiotic agent. Wind is a abiotic agent. The wind currents which carry the pollen grains. For example, as you see in the maize plant. In the maize plant, both male and female flowers present in the same plant, but the flowers are unisexual flowers. That unisexual flowers present in different location, but here the pollination is by only the wind. The wind current is carrying the pollen grains of male towards the female flowers. As such phenomenon, what we are called as anemophily. So, example that is in maize plant. In maize plant, most of the flowers, the wind is carrying the pollen grains. So, as the second abiotic factor, that is water, so the phenomenon called hydrophily. Hydrophily, that is pollination by water. Pollination by water. Example, hydrilla, nymphaea, like different aquatic plants are the plants which are present in water condition. So, in which the pollination it is carried by wind. As another, that is zoophily. Zoophily is nothing but pollination by animals. Pollination by animals. Different a number of entomophilic. Most of that is zoophily. That is nothing but insect pollinated, bird pollinated, lizard pollinated, human pollinated. Like different plants are there. You can take any example. So that is pollination by animals. So pollination by animals, it is nothing but there is different animals. So that is based on animals, based on the type of animals. So these pollination is also at different types. So like pollination by birds. That is a small hummingbird. It is also helps to pollination. The pollination by birds, it is called as ornithophy. Pollination by birds, it is called as ornithophy. So pollination by insects, it is entomophily. Pollination by insects. So what you see, most of the honeybees which have take role in the insects, the honeybees which well pollinate us in the environment. So because at the time of pollination, an insect which meet the flowers. So during which the flower is also provide certain rewards to these insects, as commonly the flowers which produce certain rewards to animals, all the animals, so which are involved in the pollination. So like pollination by ants. So that is phenomenon what we have called as myrmecophily. So as we see in the mango we are identified that is myrmecophily, that is pollination by ants. So another one, that is pollination by bats. Pollination by bats, that is chiropterophily. Chiropterophily. So the bats are also visit the flower to successful pollination. That phenomenon what we are called as chiropterophily. Even the pollination by bats, pollination by snails, that is malacophily. So these are the different types of pollination. Ornithophily, that is pollination by birds. Entomophily, pollination by insects. Myrmecophily, pollination by ants. Chiropterophily, it is nothing but pollination by bats. Malacophily, pollination by snails. Even not only these, pollination by human, that is in the sunflower, cotton, so as we are involved in the cross pollination. So as the pollination by garden lizard, zerk lizard, the lizard who visit the flower. So if any of these, all these animals, they meet flower for their own process, for their own benefit. For that benefit, while the animal who visit the flower, the pollen grains of flower which are stick on the body of animal. If the same time the same animal it visit another flower where the pollen grains around the body which may be fall on the another stigma of another flower. So as like here there is carried the completion of that pollination, as which carried the pollen grains of one flower to another flower. So as like the different agents of these. So which are the agents? So as these agents, while they visit flower for their own benefit, so sometimes the flowers, what we are called as floral rewards, to animals. At the time of an animal, it visits to flower, the flower produces certain benefits, as that is what we are called as flower reward or floral reward. That reward gained by that animal. So there are two important, that is floral rewards, that is because all the insects, most of the animals which visit the flower to suck the nectar as the entomophilous flowers. So means here nectar and pollen grains are usual rewards. Usual rewards. So now the important reward, that is nectar. The nectar is a sweet fluid. That sweet fluid which used as a food source. So the honeybee will suck the nectar as it's stored as in the form of honey in the beehive, honey beehive. So the pollen grains are also one of the important nutritious food, as we discussed in before last class, that is what where we discussed that pollen grains in the topic of pollen grain. The pollen grains are very nutritious contents. So like the nectar and the pollen grains are, that is usual rewards, the rewards taken by most of the animals. So as by certain time, the flowers which provide space for laying eggs. As sometimes a larger flower, the flower is safe place for laying its eggs. Because why it is safe place? At the time of certain predators, the predators which eat the eggs, then its reproductive rate is less. So as the insect or moths which are searching safe place for laying eggs. For example, one of the flower, that is Amorphophallus. So it is the larger flower. It is nearly 6 feet high. These Amorphophallus, a larger flower which grows 6 feet height, in which laying of eggs, it is a safe place for those insects. As even, that is one of the important example, that is a moth and yucca plant. A moth and yucca plant, they are not complete their life cycle without each other. They are depend upon one another. Their life cycle is not complete each other. So why their life cycle is not complete? It's very important. The moth is also called as Yucca moth antlecaritino. Yucca moth is nothing but the moth which lay its eggs. It lays its eggs in lacule of ovary of yucca. ಈ ಯುಕ್ಕಾ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಓವರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ laterally this moth is lays its eggs. As those eggs which after hatching, what the embryos of those moth which carry the seeds. Even those, the embryos of these, that is moth, which are also consume the seeds as a nutritious. So those eggs after breakdown, that embryos carry the seeds of yucca plant, which helps to reproduction, which helps to dispersal. So like these a moth and yucca plant which does not completes its life cycle with each other. It's a very best example what the floral rewards which are getting by animals. So as students, that is the pollination, transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma, either same flower or another flower of same plant or another flower of different plant, in which the three types autogamy, geitonogamy, xenogamy, based on the source of pollen. So even based on agents, there are two important factors are abiotic factors, that is abiotic agents, that is wind and water. That is pollination by wind, it is called as anemophily. So we discussed that. What are the characters? Very important. What are the characters which are present in the plants of are flowers present, are flowers involved in the pollination by wind? Hydrophily, the pollination by water, or pollination by water. Pollination by water. That is what we are called as hydrophily. Pollination by animals, which is called as zoophily. So based on animals, there is different types of pollination. Ornithophily, it is nothing but pollination by birds. Entomophily, that is pollination by insects. Myrmecophily, that is pollination by ants. Chiropterophily, pollination by bats. Malacophily, that is pollination by snakes. As all the animals which visit the flower, which provide two important rewards, that is nectar and pollen grains, are that is most useful or usual common rewards. So as like another floral reward, that is flower provide a safe space for laying its eggs. That is the example what we have written, that is Amorphophallus. So these Amorphophallus flower, it is one of the largest which grow as a 6 feet. So another one floral reward, a moth and yucca plant which does not complete their life cycle without living each other. So like moth which lays its eggs in the lacule of ovary yucca flower, as like it is the benefit of moth. As the benefit of yucca plant, the seeds of yucca plant, so when they are laying the eggs in the lacule of ovary which carry the pollination, so moth helps to pollination to the yucca plant. So the yucca plant is also get beneficiary. So it is also called as a partial mutualism of Pudana. So because both are beneficiary here. So the yucca flower, the seeds of yucca which carried by the embryos of these moth. So as the next step we discussed, that is characters of that is wind pollinated flowers. It is just we continue in next class.